Bye.
We're live. Surrey Crow here with my dear new wonk friend, Kate Powell, for the
Wonk.
people. You're such a wonk. I love it though, because we learn when we talk to you. So it's great. So we're here on a Friday afternoon. We hope everyone out there is doing well as best and as well as can be expected.
As well as can be expected.
In these trying times. And thank you for joining us. Tell your friends right now, join us. We're going to have a vibrant discussion about what can the Democrats do when MAGA Republicans, I call them the fascists, have control of the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. Like, I know that I often feel very helpless, but Kate here has some possible tools that the Dems can use to fight back as we head towards a potential, I don't know, government shutdown. Kate, fill us in.
Sure.
What's the latest?
So let's talk about this current state of play. Right now, the House has what they're calling a clean continuing resolution / stopgap in funding. So everybody hopefully is aware at this point that as of October 1st, the government will have no more money. Obviously, there's still money in the bank, there's still money in the Treasury, but that there's no approved budget. And meaning that the government, with the exception of a few key departments and whatnot, like Veterans Affairs and some other like what are deemed essential departments, everything else has to stop. Nobody can work. Nobody gets paid. Now, some employees will be forced to work on furlough, but they just won't be getting paid, which is a whole other discussion that we won't get into. But just understand that that's what we mean when we say effectively the government has shut down. The government is shut down because in the Constitution, Article 1, it gives Congress the exclusive right to do appropriations. And I'm going to keep harping on this because this is like the big deal, the whole reason that we're here today. Now, this may all sound familiar because back in March, we had this exact same thing. All of FY25, the fiscal years of the government go from October 1 through September 30. Okay. All of FY25, which was October 1, 2024 through this September 30, we have been running on what's called a continuing resolution. So in the normal state of things, we would be doing what's called appropriations through Congress, which are permanent funding bills, usually done on a one fiscal year basis. Some of the bills, like Veterans Affairs, for instance, has some advanced funding broken. No, Social Security payments do not stop. Those are considered essential. However, I saw this comment. Social Security payments do not stop. That is a big myth, by the way.
Oh, okay.
All of the payments continue. Now, if you need to enroll or change your benefits or talk to a CSR or something about it, like a customer service person, that's not going to happen during a shutdown. But nothing, if you are currently receiving Social Security, that goes on.
That's good to know.
So that is considered essential. Now, what's supposed to happen for appropriations is there's 12 appropriations bills, one for each cabinet department, basically. And then some of them are umbrellaed underneath each other. So, you have the AG and who's in charge of justice, and then you have Commerce, which is Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce. Those are under one bill. Commerce, Justice, and Science are one bill. And then VA and MILCON, military construction, are under another bill. So anyway, there's 12 different bills. So the Senate has an appropriations committee. The House has an appropriations committee. Each of them have 12 subcommittees for each of these bills. Their entire job, and really this is Congress's really one and only job. I mean, they obviously have other things that they do, but this is supposed to be the job from Article 1. They're supposed to hash out these 12 bills, reconcile them between the two chambers, and send a final package of 12 bills, or, and they might go out individually or they might go out as what we call an omnibus bill. But however it goes out, it goes to the president's desk, he signs it or vetoes it. If he vetoes it, obviously it would go back to the Congress. They'd have to override the veto or start all over again. So what's supposed to happen is that we have these 12 funding bills approved every single fiscal year. What happened in FY25 is that we never got those. There was a 6-month continuing resolution that was put in place at the beginning of the fiscal year, and it went through March, whatever it was, March 13th, or not a 6 month. Anyway, there were a couple CRs. And then what happened is Trump assumed office. And one of the big things that was going on is, like, obviously he immediately started slashing and burning, started freezing funds, started what's called impounding funds. So when you hear about impoundment or the Impoundment Control Act, we're talking about the president illegally withholding funds that have already been appropriated. Once Congress has appropriated funds, whether that's by these appropriations bills or the continuing resolution, which is basically we didn't have time to do full appropriations, so for the next 6 months, this is what we're doing.
Right.
That's what a CR is. So, however they do that, though, that is legal. That is what is supposed to be happening. The executive branch is supposed to execute those bills.
Which part is legal for Congress to do what now?
Either a CR or appropriations.
Okay. But it's illegal for him to impound the funds.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
So, because remember, Article 1 is very clear. All appropriations rest with Congress.
Right.
Like, Congress has what's called the power of the purse. You'll hear that thrown all around a lot, too. That is not supposed to be up for debate. Trump assumes office. He kind of pulls the Nixon, though I think he takes it further than Nixon ever did, and starts impounding funds. He starts withholding things, freezing grants, canceling things, just, going crazy, gutting departments, just all things that, again, are stood up by federal statute and funded by appropriations. So Congress is, of course, like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, right.
And in the like chaos of those first 60 days, we were coming up on the end of that CR that was currently in place because a full year's appropriation had not been done for FY25.
Okay.
And so what ended up happening is there was this outcry, and the media keeps calling it from the left. And I just have to say that I think that is a mischaracterization, but we'll get there in a second.
Okay.
There was this outcry to the Senate Democrats to invoke the filibuster, to stop any potential budgeting because of what we were seeing. We were seeing that Trump was basically a crazy man. The world was on fire. And we were like, make it all stop until to send a message and get this man back in line. Schumer ultimately decided not to. And the two reasons he cited at the time were the courts are stopping Trump. Right. We need to let the courts do their job. That's part of the check that's happening. And if the government is shut down, then Trump is going to have more power in a shutdown than he would if we were operating anyway.
Right.
And obviously, a lot of people, including myself, were infuriated with Schumer because part of it was also that it was so wishy-washy.
Right.
He said he wasn't going to do it, and then he did, and then he did. We went back and forth for like a week. And then at the end of the day, even though there were literally, I think at one point, I heard people who were working in Congress, like aides and staffers, saying that there were like 1,800 calls a minute occurring like the day that they were voting on the next CR, the one that we're currently on.
The one that we're on right now. Okay, right.
The one that we're on right now.
And the House voted to shut it down, and they were furious, remember?
Well, the House Dems voted to shut it down.
The Dems.
It
right.
still passed the House, but the Dems all unilaterally, even Jared Golden, who we'll get to in a second, said no.
Our buddy Jared.
Our friend Jared. No, actually, you know what? No. He actually did.
I don't think he did.
Last time. Yeah, no, that's right. Jared.
I think
he was the reason that it escaped. There were a couple Republicans who had rebelled.
Yes.
Jared Golden was the reason it escaped. So sorry. Yeah, we hate Jared.
Jared Golden, to be clear,
call
not
his office
Moskowitz.
and tell him how irritated you are with him.
Yes, Jared Golden, who's in Maine, by the way, and he may as well just be MAGA because he never votes with the Dems. Yeah, he's got to go.
And it's very frustrating. So, but he's very popular in his district, so he's not going anywhere. The polling's very clear on that. So Jared Golden was the one vote that got that bill, that CR out of the House, but it went to the Senate. Now, this is where the filibuster comes in. Anything that is not a privileged motion in the Senate. The big, beautiful bill was a privileged motion. There are other things that are privileged motions, meaning they only require 51 votes to pass versus the 60 votes to break what's called the filibuster. So back in the day, the filibuster was when somebody would get on the floor and they wouldn't shut up. Mm-hmm. And in order to get them to shut up, you had to invoke cloture, the French word for close. And in order to invoke cloture, you had to it used to be 66 votes. Now it's only 60, because we've just become more and more polarized and partisan. And so that's really the only way to get anything done anymore. Yeah. And so 60 votes is what's needed currently to invoke cloture.
Okay.
So effectively, unless you have what's called a supermajority in the Senate, meaning one party has 60 or more members who are going to vote down party lines, you have to have bipartisan support for pretty much anything
Right.
in Congress. So this is my first point. Again, that doesn't include privileged motions, which budget reconciliation, which is what the big beautiful bill was. That was not that was privileged. That was not subject to cloture. That's why they were able to ram that through on a simple majority, even with
Okay.
the Republicans rebelling. And because JD Vance ultimately had to be the tiebreaker there. So that's okay. So we've laid out the whole land.
Right.
What has currently happened is so that CR went from March to September 30.
Yep.
Where are we now? Well,
we're back here again
we're
at
back
this
here
deadline.
again,
Yeah.
but actually with a completely different state of play.
Exactly.
We are currently in the middle of what's called a pocket rescission, which is the Trump administration illegally impounding funds again. You'll recall that there was the rescissions package in July, which was another big brouhaha. In the Budget Control and Impoundment Act of 1974, I believe, there were rules laid out for how a president could become part of the appropriations process. There's only one way. Because again, Article 1, very clear. Congress has the power of the purse, the end, and the executive executes their budget. So the way that, and this started with Nixon because, and so basically, man wanted to impound funds, much as the way Trump is doing, except Trump's doing it way harder.
Yeah.
And Congress was like, absolutely not. So they passed this act to basically clarify how the president could question Congress. So what the president has to do if he's like, I really don't want to spend this, or I think this is wrong, or whatever, he has to send what's called a special communication to Congress. Congress has 45 days to determine whether or not they will grant the rescissions request or whether they will say, no, sir, spend the money. In that 45 days, no matter what Congress's decision and no matter when they make that decision, the president is not required to spend the funds. So they could say, no, sir, on day 2, but he could still wait 43 more days to actually spend the funds. This is where what's called the pocket rescission comes in.
Okay.
The pocket rescission is when a president tries to be cute about this and waits until 45 days are left in the fiscal year. 45 days or less are left in the fiscal year. And then he sends a special communication. And no matter what Congress decides, because the Impoundment Control Act gives him the ability to wait that full 45 days, he basically waits out the expiration of these funds. So it's a game. It's an illegal game. The Government Accountability Office, the Supreme Court, and past Supreme Courts, we'll get to them in a second, of that, it is a long standing, since the Budget Control Act was put in place, it is a long standing, clear understanding that this is illegal.
Okay.
The president cannot do that.
Okay.
The theory being that, the whole point of the Budget Control Act was to limit the president's ability to impound, not give him basically a blank check. I mean, because in theory, then the president could literally not spend money.
So how is he getting away with this right now then?
Okay, so here's what's happening right now. So Russ vote after the first rescissions package happened in July, and by the way, the Senate Democrats could have halted that, and they did not, which is a whole other thing, but we don't have time to get into that right now. So after Russ, one of the reasons that people like myself were advocating so hard for the Senate Dems to stand up to that rescissions package is because the beast is never satisfied.
Yeah,
the beast being Russ Vought, who is the head of Office Management and Budget, OMB, basically the president's spending arm.
And the author, one of the key authors of Project 2025.
The father of Project 2025. So this is not a coincidence, obviously. Russ Vought immediately, pretty much as soon as that rescissions package that was technically legally done happened, was like, well, there's some money, more money that we don't really want to spend. And so we're probably just going to send that special communication in mid-August when we're within the 45 days and we're not planning to spend it. And was told that was illegal, was told by in no uncertain terms, that's an illegal move. You really can't do that, sir. And he was like, watch this. He decided to do the usher thing. Watch this.
Yeah.
And so he did it. And a court, Amir Ali, federal district judge in DC, immediately said, "Yeah, that was a thing. That was a choice you made, but no."
Right.
And then the DC Court of Appeals also said, because of course the Trump administration immediately peeled that up. The DC Court of
Right.
Appeals also said, "This is not a thing. That's called a pocket rescission. We all know it's illegal. Use Google. Google's free.
Right.
Please stop."
You can't do this, right?
And so Trump, of course, went crying to mommy.
Right. To the Supreme Court.
This is where we get to the crux of the matter. And Chief Justice Roberts has issued an administrative stay on the order turning back the pocket rescission. Now, an administrative stay is supposed to be a temporary stay until a full either a stay based on stay pending appeal can be put together, or the thing can be fully heard in court. But the clock is ticking, as we just said. So essentially what is, because there's been no movement on this administrative stay, it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
And there's actually Steve Vladeck at One First Substack. He has a great article about the administrative stay this week, and talking about how that's become increasingly abused by the Supreme Court. And they're essentially using this procedure because an administrative stay, first of all, just requires Justice Roberts. He just issued it and was like, "I'm saying it's a stay, and I didn't need anyone else's permission to do this." And it's unreasoned. There's no like, this is the reason we're
no argument for it.
There's no argument.
I'm just doing this because I said
I'm just doing this because it's to me, because it's pretty clear the Supreme Court is here to enable POTUS.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I think we need a banner on banner every time we're talking about this Supreme Court. Your Supreme Court is trash.
Right. Well, and it's becoming, it's just so blatant at this point.
Yeah.
Like, and please understand, those who are listening who are maybe like not differentiating as much. Federal judiciary does not equal SCOTUS only. SCOTUS is basically like this rogue band of crazy people, with the exception of Elena, Ketanji, and Sonia. Okay?
Sonia.
The three of them are not.
Yeah, no, we don't count them. We don't count
them. They're basically held hostages. They're like blinking twice. They need our help.
They're like, help us.
Right.
This is bad.
But the other 6 are off the chain, obviously, and increasingly off the chain. So back in March, they were less so. I think Schumer, as much as I disagree with his decision, because the beast is never satisfied, and this is exactly where I thought we were going to go. So here we are. Is once you give an inch to bullies, this is what they do.
Yeah, they want a mile, and then another 50 kilometers. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Justice Roberts is doing what he always does, which is using loopholes and whatever to give Trump what he wants.
Okay.
So this pocket rescission is going to go through unless Congress does something about it, which I'll get to what I mean in just a second. Okay. The other thing that's happening is tariffs are happening. Tariffs are under the responsibility of Congress. They are not supposed to be done. Now, there is a law called IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act.
Okay.
That is what Trump is invoking because it gives him limited tariff ability in emergency national security situations. And so, of course, he said all these things about fentanyl and like whatever. And it's all bullshit, by the way. And I know it's bullshit because 2 different courts, again, have found that
this is illegal. Right.
The International Court of Trade said it was illegal.
Right.
And then the Federal Circuit Court of
Appeals
said it was illegal.
But once again, he's going to run this up the chain.
So Trump ran it up the chain, and now SCOTUS has shoved it onto their merits docket for this fall, which, by the way, the speed with which they have done that is very unusual. Because they already had their docket set for the fall. It was announced back in like July, or actually August. It was very late, actually, in being announced, probably because they were waiting for all of Trump's requests.
Yeah.
And they still didn't get them all. And the other thing that just happened yesterday, is Trump has asked for an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court to fire Lisa Cook after her firing has already been stayed.
It's already been it's already been ruled illegal.
2 different courts again.
So
we've got all of these encroachments on Congress, right? The president is clearly like, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah.
With appropriations, Article 1 in the Constitution, that was like a suggestion. But
I'm not listening. So where does that bring us in terms of
where does that bring us right now?
Right.
Right now, what's going on is there are two things happening at the same time. One is the House has just passed a stopgap measure. Basically, they have once again failed to produce an appropriations package for FY26, which is like
The Republicans.
Of course they haven't.
Yeah. They can't
And
budget.
and honestly, like, as
Can't
I've been
govern.
covering in my other content, the Senate versions of the appropriations have been very well done. They're not perfect. But they're at least keeping us on parity with FY25 and rejecting pretty much all the draconian cuts that Russ Vogt from OMB has requested. House has not done that. They have pretty much tried to give Russ Vogt what he wants in the majority of the budget. Now, that's where the appropriations bills are. So the CR is looking, they're saying it's a clean CR, meaning they're like, we're just keeping everything normal. They're not keeping everything normal. There's something called anomalies, and without getting into the weeds about it, Trump is putting his edits on the bill. So in this current funding bill that just passed the House this morning.
Okay.
It's headed over to the Senate.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
That's the funding bill that's going to fund us past September 30th. That's the theory. Okay. In that bill, the only groups that are getting what they want out of it is the Republicans, who are the ones responsible for the last two CRs for what we are currently on. So if we're just keeping what they're already doing, it's the Republican spending.
Yeah.
Also, it's got Trump's anomalies in it. So Trump got to insert himself into this spending bill. Also, it has security funding, extra security funding for congressional members because of what happened last week with Kirk and his assassin.
Okay.
Those are the only things, to my knowledge anyway, from what I can tell, that have been put into this CR. There has been no input from the Democrats.
Right.
There has been no, so the first myth, the Republicans have been spouting around that this is a clean CR, it's bipartisan, like nobody did anything. That's not true. It's full of their priorities.
I'm reading here from Political. It says Democrats in both chambers are irate. Republicans are plowing ahead with a product they say was crafted with little to no input from their side of the aisle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like, conceivably, the only thing that would benefit Democrats is the extra security.
The security. That's it.
That's about it. So that's the current thing happening. The other thing happening is what I just outlined with the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Which is, when it comes to agency independence like the Fed, when it comes to appropriations, when it comes to taxes, these are things that Congress is supposed to be in charge of.
Right.
It's
so
not
these tools
supposed to be the president.
Right.
Okay. So what
can we do?
Though, is the Supreme Court is enabling either temporary stays that basically effectively allow, like, pocket rescission, for instance, or they're agreeing to hear this terrorist cases fall, which probably means they're going to rule with him, right? Like they're It seems likely, again, given all of they're not allowing the tariffs to stop right now because the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, the International Court of Trade halted the tariffs. But the Supreme Court is like staying all that until they can hear the case.
So what can the Dems do at this late hour?
Right. So at this late hour, this is the proposal. First of all, the Dems have laid out a couple of things. They have put forward their own version of the CR. It contains extension of ACA subsidies, Affordable Care Act subsidies, past December 31, because otherwise premiums are going to go up by about 75%. It also contains what they've said is it contains language that stops the Trump administration from doing like these rescissions and whatnot. The thing that it does not contain, that I and others that I have been like encouraging to call Congress about, and that I encourage you to call Congress about, is it says absolutely nothing about SCOTUS. And this is where we're going to get into the Constitution again. In Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2, there is something called the Exceptions Clause. This clause is what outlines the Supreme Court's, I'm not talking about the rest of the federal judiciary now, so it outlines the Supreme Court's jurisdiction. The first part of the clause talks about their original jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction means things that like they get automatically. It's not subject to anybody else. They get things that are state versus state. They get things that are about foreign dignitaries. All of those things originate at the Supreme Court. They're not at lower courts and then kicked up. They start at the Supreme Court. That's the final boss. They go right to the final boss. All other things, though, start at lower courts, right? And they go up to the Supreme Court. Except for the exceptions that Congress can make. That's how I actually don't have the wording up right here. But at the very end of that clause, it says that the Supreme Court's jurisdiction is subject to Congress. History also shows us that for the majority of our country's lifetime, the Supreme Court's docket was controlled and executed by Congress. It was not the way it works now, where the Supreme Court decides what cases they're going to hear, and they decide what questions they're going to hear, and what facts, and like all this sort of thing. That was not how that went. The Supreme Court was handed cases by Congress and said, you will do this one, you will do that one. Like they passed like resolutions and whatnot to give the Supreme Court.
So what happened?
There's a long history, and I know we're short on time.
So I know
I'd love to go through all.
We can come back and talk about that. Okay,
but basically there was a judiciary. There were a couple judiciary acts passed. And the most recent one gave the Supreme Court basically the autonomy it has now. And I would say, without getting into the weeds, they've even taken that autonomy and really gone off the rails with it. But that's a whole other lecture. What I'm saying is that with the current state of play, remember, Schumer said last time a shutdown wasn't necessary because the courts were doing their job, and the courts are doing their job. You'll notice that the special district judges and the courts of appeals are doing phenomenally.
I mean, bravo to them.
They are doing it great. They have 70-page opinions sometimes about what they're doing. It is about the law. It has nothing to do with politics.
They are doing a great job. Yep. Even the Trump-appointed judges on the lower bench.
Yeah. Now some of them are dissenting and whatnot, but they're not the only ones up there, and that's why in our federal appellate system, in the courts of appeals, we have panels of judges.
Right?
One judge. Yeah. That's how. So anyway, it's working great.
Yes.
Then we get to
the trashy. The trashy six.
Yes, and they're just clearly so like on the unitary executive theory that they set up when they gave Trump immunity, basically executive immunity. That the unitary executive theory is a whole other thing, but it basically just means like the court is operating under the assumption that Trump should operate almost
like a king.
Yes, like a king. So what I am saying is that anything the Democrats negotiate with Republicans, even if they have the chutzpah to get to the shutdown, to dig in their heels and say, we're not going to pass shit unless you actually let us put some stuff into the CR and unless we actually have bipartisan appropriations. Again, the Senate version's very bipartisan.
Right.
So it's not like it's not there. It's not like there aren't things there for them to work with. But it's not going to matter one iota if Russ vote goes like, I don't feel like it, and then impound something, and then it gets to the court, and they get sued, and then it goes up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's like, we're fine with it. Or all of these things when it comes to tariffs, like at the very least, they need to limit the SCOTUS's jurisdiction from tariffs and taxes, appropriations, and the Fed. If we don't want to see a total bottom out of like our economy, like if we just want to get super selfish and only talk about money, right? And we don't even want to talk about like the human rights violations and everything else that's going on. If you just want to talk about money, talk to all your friends who said they voted for Trump over the economy. I'm talking about the economy right now. I'm talking about the fact that our markets and our economy cannot actually take this. I realize the markets are super hot right now and they've basically been in la la land, and I have a lot of content explaining why that is and what's happening. But when I tell you that if the Fed independence is compromised, like if he manages to fire Lisa Cook, and also when I tell you that the sorry, I'm looking at headlines to yes, we know that. Sorry, the Senate has rejected the Democrats' version of the CR, which is not shocking to literally anybody. But when I tell you that the market and our economy cannot handle this level of encroachment from the executive. Like, we are being taxed to death by these tariffs, and it is only going to get worse. Remember, we don't have final tariff verdicts for China or Mexico, our top two trading partners. Probably because he's trying to see what happens with the case with the Supreme Court, to see what he can do.
What he can get away with.
Right, exactly. But Congress has this power. This is their power originally, and they have this power to...
So what do we need them to do? Professor Kate.
We need them to invoke the exceptions clause. We need them to limit SCOTUS's jurisdiction. And then they need to be willing to take that to the shutdown and say, like, we're going to literally sit here and it's going to suck until we have the things we've already asked for. Because the things they've already asked for are great. Love all those things. That's fantastic. But we're not either passing appropriations that are going to work, but we have to include something to limit SCOTUS's jurisdiction. They could do it for a year. They don't. I'm not. I'm not even of the opinion that it needs to be like a permanent limitation. But I would say through 2026.
I feel like
I
it
would.
should be. I feel like it should be a forever thing.
Well, in the current state of play, like I don't think they could get something like that. But I think you could sell to the American people, hey, we constitutionally have this authority. As Congress, we're taking it back because we gave the children more autonomy and they took the car keys and went for a joyride.
Right. Exactly.
And that's really what's happened here. And unless it's dealt with, like, again, Democrats could get to a shutdown. They could get the Republicans to give in on this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, Russ Vogt and Trump are going to do what they're going to do.
Whatever they're going to do, what they want to do.
We have seen this demonstration for the last 6 months, and we've seen the escalation of SCOTUS enabling it.
Yeah.
Not the rest of the courts. Not that I had to really explain this to someone the other day on one of my posts. I'm not talking about the judiciary at large. I'm talking about this particular clause that allows Congress to limit the jurisdiction of SCOTUS, specifically
the six.
Correct.
Six.
And the founders did that on purpose. They knew that this was possible. They knew that if you had a Supreme Court that is not elected and can't be recalled, they have lifetime appointments or whatever, there was a chance. The only way that was going to be okay is if their docket and their jurisdiction was subject to Congress, subject to the people.
Because seems like that should be a permanent thing to me, to my, know.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's fine to respond to what's going on in the moment. But again, that requires Congress to be doing their job. Responding to what's happening in a expeditious manner, based on the needs of the people at that time. And the needs of the people are this. We need to be able to trust that our government, when we have sent our representatives to draft a budget, and that when that budget is passed and done through the process and whatever, we need to be able to trust that some man named Russ Vogt sitting in OMB isn't going to be able to just unilaterally decide, I don't want to.
No, we're going to do what we want. So to put a bow on this, then,
yes,
what do we need to do? We need to call our congressional.
You need to call your reps. You need to call Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. Chuck Schumer is the Senate Minority Leader. Hakeem Jeffries is the House Minority Leader.
Right.
They're the ones who would have to whip everybody. Catherine Clark is the House Whip, if you want to call her, and Dick Durbin is the Senate Whip, if you want to call her. But honestly, I've never been able to get to live people in either one of those.
Okay.
Chuck Schumer's office is actually pretty responsive.
Yeah. They are pretty cool. I was able to get through to Chuck Schumer's office. I haven't tried Hakeem yet, but I did get Chuck.
Also call your Democrat reps.
Yes, if you have them.
If you have Democrat reps or senators or whatever, call them and say, we need you guys to bring SCOTUS in line. And the only time you're going to have leverage, because if there was no shutdown leverage, this wouldn't even be a conversation. Obviously, the Republicans are not going to vote for bringing SCOTUS in line.
And what is it called? What is the sentence? Say it in a sentence for us.
In a sentence, you're going to say, I urge the Democrats to invoke the exceptions clause of Article 3 of the Constitution that gives Congress the ability to limit the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court is enabling the president in his erosion of Congress's appropriations powers. And nothing you negotiate with the Republicans can be safe and secure from unilateral decisions from the executive unless SCOTUS has lost the ability to enable that executive. Be super clear that you're talking about SCOTUS and not the entire federal judiciary, because again, the federal judiciary in general has found all of this on law.
In general, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is specific. So if this were to be, is this a bill, or this is a part of the Constitution?
They would make it part of the bill, right? Yeah, they would make it part of the appropriation,
and that would stop Roberts from saying, I'm going to go ahead and stay it for however long I feel
you don't have jurisdiction here. You are not able to rule on whatever they decide. Appropriations.
This is great.
I am suggesting appropriations, taxes, and Fed independence. I would say agency independence in general, but probably not, And again, economics was the number one issue for voters in 2024. These are the people you are talking to right now and saying, if you really care about the financial state of our country right now, then this matters.
This is a key. This is so great, Kate. I'm so glad, because I've been, everybody, you guys should follow Kate. She has so much content. It's like I said, I call her Mrs. Wonk. She's like my professor, but really, we should start doing these weekly class with Kate, because you break down so many, no, I'm serious. You break down so many of these economic issues. And a lot of people get scared off because it's it seems overwhelming. But I think if we have conversations and explain to the electorate, this makes a difference, because when I called Schumer's office, they said, we really your input is valuable. Like whoever I spoke to said it matters when we hear from constituents, which, I've been very frustrated with Senator Schumer. So it was important for me to hear that. And then of course, when we call our representatives, it matters. I mean, I have a super MAGA rep in my district and they seem to give 0 Fs about anything, but where we can make a difference, do it. And this is a way for us to give our representatives, some power in negotiating with the terrorists.
Yeah.
I'm on Substack. You
guys know, according to Politico, as of like just a couple minutes ago, the shutdown is the showdown, or not the shutdown itself, but the showdown is on.
Is it?
We're officially playing chicken. The Democratic CR was rejected by the Senate. They had officially brought it to the floor.
The Democratic CR?
Yeah. So they managed to get it to the floor. It was shot down 47-45.
Oh, in the Senate. Okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about the House. Right.
The House CR has passed. It's on its way over to the Senate. Soon is basically telling the Democrats, you're just going to have to go with the House CR. Again, what they're calling clean CR, but it's not. Okay. That's a lie. I have a whole video about it. They've also, never mind. Sorry. I'm still catching up. The Democrats have also rejected the GOP stopgap. Okay, so the one that came over from the House has apparently already hit the Senate floor, and they voted. They have voted against it. John Fetterman of Pennsylvania was the only Democrat who voted for it.
These are Jared Golden.
Lisa Murkowski and Rand Paul also voted against the GOP stopgap from the House, which is not surprising. I was expecting both of them to do that.
Yeah. I didn't know Murkowski would. Rand Paul, yes, but not Murkowski. So it is. So it's on, and we know it's not going to go. I mean, there's no way. There's no way, Dems. I can't imagine at this point because the pressure from us is so strong right now.
We need to keep the pressure up.
Yeah. So that's the bottom line.
Yeah. So generally, when you're calling, you're saying shut it down, get them to blink first, because another part of this is it is a power play, and I know that sounds petty and ridiculous, but again, part of why many of us were screaming back in March about shutting it down was because the more momentum bullies get, the worse it gets. And we have lived it now.
Yes.
We have lived how much this got a whole lot worse. It's worse across all 3 branches. All 3 branches are compromised.
Yeah.
And we have to, there has to be something.
Bullies are never satisfied. And I'm about to do this for my piece on Midas tonight, but we're seeing it in the corporate world and with the universities. I mean, if you bargain or make deals with the terrorists, they are always going to want more. I mean, ABC paid Trump $16 million and he's coming after them again. So I hope that Schumer and the Dems have learned their lesson. It's time for us to toughen up. And yes, it is risky, but what more can we lose?
It's only risky. What they need to know is that the American people stand behind them.
Yeah, there you go.
You need to get yourself and your friends. You guys need to be calling every day. I don't care. Call the same rep every day and say, I'm calling to say again.
Yes.
That I am still behind this.
I'm behind you. I'm behind
the shutdown. I would really appreciate if you guys would limit SCOTUS, and here's why. But I am behind the shutdown. I am behind us standing up to the Republicans.
Yes.
That's what you need. You need to keep saying that over and over again. If you think this is going to happen without the people, you are wrong.
You're wrong. We're with you.
In the minority in both chambers, which means the only other check on all of this is the people. We are the last stop.
We are the last stop.
That's it.
And that has been demonstrated. And I think Chuck is starting to get an idea. I don't know what the heck happened yesterday with let's put the holiday together. But yes, as Kate always says, enjoy being a menace. We are the power of the people. So please follow Kate, follow me. We're hopefully we'll make this a regular thing. Class with Kate. I love doing it, breaking down. No, because it's important because our democracy only works when we all participate. We have to participate. We're the ones that put these people in power. And many of them have gotten fat and lazy. And we need to remind them, hey, Mr. Senator, my vote put you there. And I will get your ass out of there if you're not representing me. Kate, you're awesome. Thank you. Big heart out to you. We'll do this again. Enjoy your weekend. You're amazing.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Share this. Be a menace. Share this video. Bye.
Bye.